welcome to Experiment Scary. Have you ever imagined that someone you love slowly turns into something that is not human? What would happen if a simple game instead trapped you in an endless nightmare? Tonight, I'm going to tell you a true story about a Roblox addict named Steven and how his obsession turned his girlfriend, Anne, into a creature unlike any other. Listen carefully, and don't stop until this story is finished, because once you're in, you may never get out again. Steven, a 19-year-old teenager. Since childhood, he's been inseparable from a screen. Roblox is his second world. Day and night, he builds worlds, creates avatars, and interacts with strangers he's never met in real life. At school, he was known as a quiet person. He didn't have many friends and didn't care about his surroundings. The only person he was truly close to was his girlfriend, Anne. Anne was his polar opposite, cheerful, caring, and full of love. However, that love slowly began to fade, because Steven never stopped playing. Anne's days were filled with disappointment. She often came to Steven's house, only to find her boyfriend hunched over the computer, with red eyes and a blank face. Anne once said, "Steven, you love that game more than I do." But Steven just stared at the screen and smiled a little, as if Anne's words were just meaningless noise. But everything changed one night when Steven discovered a dark Roblox forum. It was hidden. It wasn't just any forum. It was filled with people obsessed with bringing Roblox to the real world. There were strange codes, electronic instructions, and most frighteningly, theories about how to turn humans into living Roblox avatars. Steven read each line. His eyes grew even wider. There was fear, but also incredible curiosity, until finally, he whispered to himself, "Anne, you will be the first."
Anne, you will be the first.
Night after night, Steven began transforming his room. Behind the always locked door, he arranged wires, soldered strange devices, installed additional monitors, and wrote codes on the screens. Anne, who came to visit, began to suspect something. She heard strange sounds coming from inside the room. It sounded like an electrical buzz, a mix of faint screams and game music playing in reverse. One night, Anne knocked loudly on the door.
"Steven, what are you doing in there?"
But the door never opened, and from inside, Anne could only hear rapid typing, as if Steven were racing against the clock. Eventually, Anne grew tired. She felt like Steven no longer cared about her. However, Anne didn't know that Steven was planning something far more dangerous than simply ignoring her love. Steven began scribbling notes in a small black notebook. It contained an experimental plan, a step-by-step guide on how to transfer a soul into the Roblox world. There was even a sketch of Anne's face inside, with the note "First Model." Imagine how cold the heart of a game addict is, that he is willing to use the person he loves as a test subject. And then that night arrived. The night Steven was sure his experiment was ready to run. He turned on the computer, put on the bulky headset, and powered up his homemade machine. Red light shone from the tangled cables on the bedroom floor. The monitor vibrated, displaying a never-ending stream of code. The sounds of the Roblox game mixed with the hum of electricity. Steven smiled, a smile that was no longer human. He whispered to the screen,
Anne, soon you'll be part of my Roblox world. You'll never leave me again.
And that was the beginning of a never-ending nightmare. Anne returned to Stephen's house that night. She thought Stephen would finally talk, perhaps apologize for ignoring her. However, as soon as Anne stepped inside, the atmosphere in the house felt different. The living room lights were off, except for a faint glow from behind Stephen's bedroom door. The door, which had always been locked, was now slightly ajar, as if inviting her in. Anne walked slowly. The air in the house was strange. It was cold, but not naturally cold. It was cold, as if something was sucking the warmth from her body. When she opened Stephen's bedroom door, her eyes widened.
Oh no. What actually happened?
The room wasn't like any other room. Wires dangled from the ceiling, red lights flickered slowly, and monitors lined up displayed rapidly racing code. And in the center of the room, Stephen sat upright, his face obscured by the screen's shadow. Stephen turned his head slowly. His eyes were no longer the Stephen eyes he knew. Those eyes were empty, but flashed a faint red. Stephen smiled, a smile that made Anne's blood run cold. He said softly, almost like a mantra,
Today, Anne, you won't just be my girlfriend. You'll be part of my Roblox world, forever.
Anne froze, her heart pounding. She took a step back, but the bedroom door slammed shut. It was locked. Anne screamed, trying to open the door, but behind her, there was an electronic clicking sound, like a digital lock. There was no way out. Stephen stood up. He held a small remote control with a glowing red button. He pressed it. The machine in the corner of the room roared loudly. A dazzling red light filled the room. The wires on the floor vibrated as if they were alive. Anne screamed. Stephen walked over, his gaze filled with madness. He whispered right into Anne's ear.
I've been waiting for this moment. Now you'll never leave me again.
Anne tried to fight back, pushing Stephen away, running to the window. But every step she took was blocked by the snake-like cable wrapped around her leg. She fell. Her hands and body were held by the cables, pulling her toward the center of the room. On the computer screen, her Roblox avatar began to move on its own. The avatar looked like her. It looked like Anne. His eyes were empty, his mouth was locked, as if waiting for a new soul to enter it. Anne screamed. But Stephen laughed softly, his laugh dry and scary.
Anne, you will be with me in Roblox forever.
And that's when Anne felt something touch her body. It wasn't a human hand. It was an electric current. Cold, sharp, like thousands of needles piercing her skin. Her body trembled, her voice faltered, her eyes widened in fear. On the screen, Anne's avatar slowly opened its eyes. They glowed red. That night, Stephen's experiment officially began. Anne was no longer just human. She had become part of something much darker. And Stephen stood in the middle of the room, staring at his creation with a look of pure madness. For Stephen, this was just the beginning. But for Anne, it was the beginning of a nightmare that not even death could stop. Anne screamed. Her body was shaken by an electric current that seemed to tear her soul apart. Her eyes bulged, her mouth trembled, but her voice cracked, sounding like a broken robot. on the screen. The Roblox avatar with Anne's face became clearer. Her red eyes opened, her mouth moved, and when Anne screamed, her scream transformed into a terrifying digital sound. His hands were shaking. His skin was starting to crack, not blood leaking out, but red pixels of light. Her nails turned stiff, her face tensed like a polygon.
Steven, please, stop.
But the voice was distorted, broken. It sounded like an NPC in a game that had gone haywire. Steven leaned in, staring at her with gleaming eyes. He whispered terrifying words.
It's so beautiful. You're slowly becoming perfect.
Anne tried to crawl away, but the wires wrapped around her body even more, her chest, her arms, even her neck. She couldn't move. Every time she struggled, the wires tightened, digging into her skin, delivering more electricity. His face was now half human, half avatar. The right eye is still human, full of tears. The left eye has become a red box, empty, cold. Anne shouted again.
Steven, please, let me go.
But Steven just chuckled. It was a dry, cold, inhuman laugh. On the computer screen, Anne's avatar moved on its own. She reached for the sides of the screen, as if trying to escape. The pixelated hand pressed against the monitor glass, leaving a fine crack. Anne saw it and screamed even louder. He realized his soul was truly being sucked away. His body in the real world was growing weaker, while the avatar on the screen was becoming more and more lifelike. Steven approached, kneeling beside Anne. He looked at her with a look of satisfaction on his face.
See, Anne, now you can't leave me. You are my creation, a part of the world that will never die.
Anne tried to hold Steven's hand. A final tear fell. But when her hand touched Steven, it felt cold, not like a human hand, but cold, stiff metal. Steven smiled wider, and then Anne realized it wasn't just herself who had changed. Steven was also starting to lose his humanity. His empty eyes, his pale skin. It's as if he is also half connected to the world of Roblox. And that night, Anne's transformation was unstoppable. Her body jerked violently, her eyes rolled, and then it stopped. Silence. On the screen, Anne's avatar smiled, not a happy smile, but a hollow, creepy smile. Anne was no longer human. She was part of Roblox, and Steven looked at her with eyes filled with love and madness. But what he didn't realize, the Anne on the screen, was no longer the Anne he had fallen in love with. It was something much darker and thirsty for freedom. Since that night of the experiment, Anne has never been seen in the real world again. Her parents searched everywhere, her friends wondered, but Steven just sat in front of his computer, sending blanks, as if none of it mattered. Because for Steven, Anne isn't gone. She still exists, but not in the real world, but in Roblox. Every time Steven logged into the game, Anne's avatar was always waiting for him. She stood silently in the corner of the virtual room, her eyes blank, her face stiff. Sometimes Anne tried to speak.
Stay, then left, set, right.
But the voice was no longer human. It was a corrupted digital voice, full of noise and glitches. Steven stared at the screen with a weak smile. He whispered,
Don't worry, Anne. Now we're together forever.
But as time went on, Anne began to change. She was no longer just a passive avatar sitting on Steven's screen. She began to appear in other games. Other Roblox players began to fear. They reported that there was a mysterious avatar, pale-faced, glowing black eyes, that kept appearing on their servers. The avatar just stood there, staring straight ahead, unmoving, and when anyone tried to approach, their computer screen would shake violently before shutting down completely. Some players swear. The avatar calls their names in a hoarse voice. Some even hear a woman's cries coming from the speakers, even though they're playing alone. Steven knew who it was. It was Anne, the Anne who was starting to rebel, the Anne who wanted to get out of Roblox, the Anne who was no longer the sweet girlfriend he knew. He was no longer a victim. He was a new creature, a creature that haunted anyone who dared enter that world. Steven became more and more immersed in his obsession. The later he played, the more often he heard Anne's whispers. Sometimes the voice sounded angry, sometimes full of pain. Steven began having trouble sleeping. The image of Anne's avatar appeared behind his eyes every time he closed them. He even began seeing Anne's figure off screen, standing in the corner of his room. Her body glitched, half human, half polygon. Anne is no longer just an avatar. He is a trapped spirit, thirsting for freedom. And that freedom, he can only get it in one way, pulling others into the same world. Steven doesn't realize, every time he plays he opens a door, not just for himself, but for all of us. And that night, for the first time, Anne's avatar turned directly to the audience. Yes, to you, who are listening to this story. Steven stood stiffly in the dark room. The monitor still flickered wildly, displaying strange codes that danced across the screen. Anne sat in the chair directly in front of him. Her body remained the same, but something had changed, profoundly. Her eyes were blank, her pupils quivering like a digital glitch. Her lips curled into a strange smile. Not a human smile, but a Roblox character's.
Anne.
Steven's voice trembled. Anne turned her head slowly, a hoarse voice escaping her lips, but it sounded double like a human voice and a robot voice forced together.
Stevian, I'm here, but I'm also inside.
Steven stumbled backward, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and guilt. The experiment he had run had worked too well. Suddenly, Anne's body stiffened. Her hands transformed, their fingers extending into blocks, like the hands of a Roblox avatar. Her flesh trembled, her skin cracked like a broken screen, and a gray digital texture emerged. Anne screamed. The scream was mixed with the sound of a computer error. Steven covered his ears, but the voice pierced straight into his head. The monitor behind him displayed thousands of Anne's faces, but they had all transformed into Roblox avatars staring unblinkingly at Steven. Steven's tears fell.
I just want you to be a part of my world, the Roblox world, so we can never be apart.
Anne, or the creature that was once human, stood up. Her movements were stiff like a broken doll, but they were gradually becoming more flexible. She walked closer with heavy steps, each step sounding like the sound of splintering wood and a digital glitching.
Steven, I'm here forever with you.
Suddenly the lights went out. It was pitch black. The only light came from the monitor screen, which now displayed the words in large red, "You can't log out." Stephen stared at the monitor, his face pale. When he turned to look at Anne was gone. All that was left was a life-sized Roblox avatar doll, standing still in the middle of the room, staring at Stephen with a blank smile. The life-size Roblox avatar doll stood upright in the center of the room. Its eyes were two empty black squares, and its mouth was in a wide, expressionless smile. At first it was quiet. So? The doll's neck twisted 180 degrees with a piercing snap. Stephen stepped back, his back hitting the wall.
有犯去图意识到
But the doll moved. Its hand rose stiffly, its fingers turning into gray, glitchy blocks. It stepped forward, its voice coming out strange, a mix of Anne's voice, a robot's voice, and a computer error.
Stephen, join in.
The monitor behind Stephen suddenly flashed, displaying a red code. It clearly read, "Updating player data." Suddenly, Stephen's body shook. It was as if an electric current had entered his head. He looked down at his hands and was shocked to death. The skin on his palms began to crack. A Roblox pixelated texture appeared, creeping up his arms.
No, this is impossible!
The doll got closer, its face leaning further toward Stephen. Its hollow smile widened, as if its face might split open. Stephen screamed, grabbed a chair, and threw it at the doll. The doll fell, but it didn't break. Instead, its body broke into pieces as it fell, and those pieces began to move on their own. Hands crawled across the floor. The head jumped, its mouth still grinning. The doll's broken body crawled toward Stephen, like a puzzle piece trying to attach itself to him. Stephen panicked and kicked the pieces away, but every time he touched them, pixels from the doll spread across his skin.
I will also be like him.
The bedroom lights came back on by themselves. Stephen stood in the middle of the room, his body covered in pixelated cracks. The monitor now displayed a horrifying message. The message reads, "Player 2 successfully connected." Stephen stared at his hand, which had almost half transformed into a Roblox avatar, and in front of him, the doll was slowly coming back together, now with Anne's face, a fake smile on her face. Stephen fell to the floor. His body was now half transformed into a Roblox avatar. From the waist down, his skin cracked, turning into pixelated blocks. His breath was ragged.
No, I'm still human. I'm still Stephen.
But Anne's voice echoed throughout the room, not from her mouth, but from the walls, from the monitor, even from the flashing lights.
Stephen, don't be afraid. This is our new world.
Suddenly, the walls of Stephen's room melted, transforming into a scrolling mess of green and red codes. The floor shook violently, as if something beneath was trying to pull Stephen inside. The computer monitor shattered on its own, and from within the screen, a glowing digital box of hands emerged, attempting to pull Stephen inside. Stephen screamed, holding himself up with the table. Suddenly, Anne appeared before him. Her face was half human, half Roblox avatar. Her eyes were blank, but from her mouth came soft words, words he had always longed for.
Stephen, you promised we would always be together, right? This is the only way.
Stephen fell silent, his heart trembling. Tears fell from his eyes. Anne smiled, a fake, glitchy smile. Then she took Stephen's hand. A moment later, Stephen's entire body was sucked into the computer screen. He let out a long scream, the world around him spinning, his body disintegrating into pixels and digital code. Until finally, darkness. A moment later, when Stephen opened his eyes, He was no longer in his room. He was standing in a giant Roblox world, the sky dark and glitchy, and thousands of faceless avatars stood silently, staring at him. And in the middle of the crowd, Anne stood, now fully transformed into the Queen of Roblox. She smiled at Steven.
Welcome, player 2.
Steven stood frozen in the vast world of Roblox. The black sky was riddled with glitchy cracks, and the ground beneath his feet was a crimson mess of cracks, as if dripping with digital blood. Thousands of faceless avatars stood silently in a large circle, staring at him silently. Steven shivered. Suddenly, one of the avatars moved. Its head spun 360 degrees, then collapsed, but its body continued moving. A broken digital voice escaped its throat.
Join us! Join!
Steven stepped back, his heart pounding. Anne emerged from the crowd, now fully transformed into a giant Roblox avatar, her face square but still retaining a hint of human features. Her eyes glowed red.
Steven, this is our world. Everyone trapped here was once a gaming addict like us. They tried to get out, but failed.
Steven was stunned.
So, all these faceless avatars are real people.
Anne smiled broadly.
They failed to receive the update. But you're different. You'll be my player 2. We'll lead this new world.
Suddenly the ground shook. The avatars began moving simultaneously, shuffling, crawling, and some jumping awkwardly towards Steven. The sound of the glitch echoed loudly. Thousands of voices mixed together. Steven covered his ears, his face full of fear. He ran, passing through the gaps between the avatars. But with every step, the ground beneath his feet cracked, forming a digital chasm. From under the abyss, giant Roblox hands appeared, trying to pull him in. Steven nearly fell, but managed to grab the edge of the platform. He turned around. Anne was standing at the edge, staring blankly at him.
Steven, no, don't run. You're already part of this world.
Steven looked at Anne, his eyes full of tears.
I won't give up, Anne. I'll get you out of here, even if it means destroying this world.
Suddenly, the entire world shook. The avatars screamed in unison, and the sky of Roblox split open, revealing a giant, glowing red eye staring directly at Steven. It turned out to be Anne's eyes. She stared with glowing red eyes, with a face that had truly become a giant avatar. While thousands of faceless avatars approached with stiff steps, reaching out to knock him down. Steven shouted angrily.
I will not be a slave to this world. If I have to, I will destroy it.
With a last ounce of strength, Steven pulled himself up. His half-pixelated hands glowed blue, as if drawing energy from the Roblox world itself. Suddenly, red codes floated in the air. A virtual monitor appeared beside Steven, displaying the following command. Root access granted. Steven was shocked.
I control this world.
Anne laughed coldly.
Yes, Steven, because you are player 2. But remember, the more you use this power, the faster you lose your humanity.
Faceless avatars charged. Steven raised his hand and suddenly, the ground cracked, unleashing a wave of pixels that pushed dozens of avatars into the digital abyss.
I am not yours.
The voices of thousands of avatars screamed in unison. The sky cracked even more, and the giant red eye above grew even brighter, staring at Steven with hatred. From the sky came a deep, heavy voice like a digital god. Player 2, you can't escape. Anne stared at Stephen with a blank face, but her voice was trembling.
Stephen, Ryan, stop! You're going to die!
Stephen turned his head, staring at Anne with teary eyes.
If I have to break down to save you, I will.
Suddenly, Stephen's body glowed blue and the entire Roblox world shook violently. Faceless avatars crumbled into pixels, screaming in pain. Anne screamed, her voice half human, half glitch.
Stephen! Don't!
The sky split in two, and from within emerged a glowing digital door, the only way out. But before Stephen could jump, Anne's glitched hand grabbed his arm. Stephen stands on the edge of a digital abyss. His body has almost completely transformed into a Roblox avatar, with only his face retaining some human features. Ahead, a door of digital light trembled, swinging open. It was the exit, but Anne held her arm tightly with a painful, glitchy hand. Stephen, don't go. I need you. We can live here. Forever. Stephen looked at Anne, tears falling.
Anne, you know this is wrong. This world is not ours. It's a prison.
Anne smiled blankly, her eyes flashing glitch.
I can't go back anymore, but you can accompany me.
The Roblox god from the sky suddenly resounded loudly. The whole world shook. The faceless avatars screamed, falling one by one into the abyss. Stephen looked at Anne. Then he looked at the exit. His heart was beating fast.
I can't lose you again, Anne. But I also can't let this world continue to consume other people's souls.
Her blue glowing hands glowed brighter and brighter. Codes appeared in the air, writing themselves. Shut down world. Anne screamed. Stephen looked at her lovingly.
Sorry, Anne. I'd rather end you than see you become a monster.
Stephen pressed the final code. The entire Roblox world collapsed. The ground cracked, the sky shattered, and the avatars screamed, including Anne. Anne hugged Stephen tightly, her face returning to normal for a moment.
Stephen, thank you. I'm free.
Anne's body broke into light and disappeared forever. Stephen screamed in despair. Stephen's body was also destroyed, swallowed by the white light. A few moments later, Stephen opened his eyes. He was back in his room. The computer was off. He looked at his hand. It was still human. But on the shattered monitor screen, there was faint writing. Welcome back, Player 2. The screen flashed, revealing Anne's smiling face, this time as a Roblox avatar. Did Stephen really make it back to the real world? Or did he just enter the next level? Remember, once you enter this cursed Roblox world, you never truly leave.